everyone. This is Debra Ruh, and this is Human Potential at Work. I have a guest on that I have admired for so many years. He is such a great mentor to me. He's such a great mentor to so many people. And he also is an amazing global leader. Right? And I was saying, well, I'm so glad to have you on again, Andy. And he's like, Debra, I have been on your other show, but not this one. So I'm shocked I have not had him on before, because he is, I think that he's the top leader in the world. He is an amazing man. So his name is Andy Imparato, and he is now the executive director of the Disability Rights Coalition.
It's just called Disability Rights California.
California, cool, and a very important organization. And he has, he joins it after a very high impact, and I agree, high impact career, 26 years in Washington, D.C., working inside and outside government in significant leader positions, including 17 years as the chief executive officer of 2 national disability organizations, the Association of University Centers on Disabilities, also known as AUCD, and the American Association of People with Disabilities, AAPD, which is an amazing organization. And now Maria Towns is running it, and she is rocking the world. Andy's experience also includes serving as a senior counsel and disability policy director for Chairman Tom Harkins on the U.S. Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, Pensions, the general counsel and director of policy for the National Council on Disability, and attorney at the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. You see now why I just think this man rocks. He graduated with distinction from the Stanford Law School in 1990 and was a summa cum laude graduate of Yale College. Sorry to get tongue-tied. He grew up in Los Angeles, California, and even though he's lived on the East Coast for many, many years, he's moved back to California. And he is married to a wonderful woman and has 2 boys. He also has lived experience with bipolar disorder. And so he's a person like I am with hidden disabilities, and an amazing leader. I'm just so honored to have you on the program today, Andy. I'm such a big fan of your work.
Thank you, Debra. You are very kind, and you're an antidepressant for me, so thank you.
Well, and Andy, you really do have an amazing career. And I remember I first met you when you were the CEO of AAPD, and I just was shocked at what you were able to accomplish, how you were able to bring really major corporations into the conversations in really authentic ways and very innovative ways. And then when you started working with Senator Harkins, who is one of the authors of the ADA, and we are celebrating 30 years of the ADA this year, you just keep raising the bar, and it's very exciting for our community. But do you mind just talking a little bit about the history of your career, because it is pretty impressive?
Well, thanks, Debra. I feel like you laid it out pretty well. I kind of see myself as a second-generation disability activist, because when I graduated law school in May of 1990, I was just dealing with a new onset of my disability that ended up getting diagnosed as bipolar disorder. And I inherited a movement that in many ways has shaped my life. When I was in law school, I knew I wanted to do public interest law, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I worked for legal services the summer after I graduated and did SSI advocacy, or supplemental security income advocacy. So that was really my introduction to disability. I had thought a lot about poverty and a lot about social justice in law school, but I hadn't really drilled down on disability. So after I started working in the field for about a year, I started to see the connection between my bipolar disorder and the work that I was doing, and started being very open and out with my disability. And then I found a community, first in Massachusetts and then in Washington. I found wonderful people with all different kinds of disabilities who made me feel like my lived experience was important, and that it's not something that I should explain away or minimize, that in fact I should try to put it front and center and leverage it. And that's what I've done throughout my career. And it makes me sad that there aren't more disability leaders with psychiatric disabilities who are doing kind of cross disability work and are achieving a lot of success in their careers. I feel like in some ways I'm a unicorn. I mean, there are others, but there aren't enough. When you
Not
think about
many.
the level of incidence of things like bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, I mean, I would guess if you just look at CEOs globally who work in disability, probably at least 15% of them have experience with depression, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, but post-traumatic stress. But I feel like a lot of them don't feel comfortable talking about it, even people who work in our field, and that makes me very sad. One of the exceptions to that, who was a great mentor for me, was Justin Dart. Justin, who I still think was the closest thing we've had to a Martin Luther King and the disability movement.
Yeah.
But he was very open about his depression, and he was very supportive of me. And he told me repeatedly that he felt like his depression was his most significant disability. And I think the reason he wanted me to hear that is he didn't want me to think that my disability didn't matter. He wanted me to feel like I was a full, I had the full stature of somebody in a wheelchair or somebody who was blind or any other type of disability.
Which is such an interesting point, because that's something that I have, and I've talked about it openly, the depression and the anxiety. And as my husband walks this path with dementia, which is really hard for everybody. And even my daughter with Down syndrome is starting to walk a path that we don't completely understand and we're trying to figure out. But I recently wrote again about my mental health issues, and I think they also make me an amazing person. They make me, innovative and creative and fun and quirky, but it also, it's really intense. And the more the intensity of the world is, we're all going to die from, oh, what is it today? And so I think it's important to talk about it and disclose it. And do people judge us for this? I don't know, but I can't worry about that, because I think more people appreciate the authenticity and us talking about it, because it is really tough. It is tough.
And I think if you compare the Clinton, because I'm a Washington creature, I think in terms of administration sometimes. But if you think about the Clinton administration and the Obama administration, in the Clinton administration, you had a number of appointees that had lived experience with disabilities, but we didn't have a lot of appointees that talked about their lived experience with mental health disabilities.
Right.
And if you fast forward to Obama, I was impressed that Chai Feldblum as a commissioner at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and Eve Hill as the top disability rights appointee at the Justice Department both talked about their lived experience with mental illness as part of their stump speech, if you will. So to me, that was progress, that we had two very high profile people with psychiatric disabilities who were comfortable talking about it in legal environments and felt like it was important that it was part of their professional identity.
I agree. And Andy, something that I've always struggled with, and I know the community struggles with it. And I saw somebody made a comment on one of my tweets yesterday about it. And they made a comment that, well, you need to, doing these things, you need to make sure that people with real disabilities, and I'm thinking, okay, I think I know what you mean by real disability. I guess a real disability is only somebody that has a physical disability, but I think psychiatric disabilities are real disability. And I think that's a problem that we have with our community. Sometimes there's infighting and fussing in that, are you disabled enough to disclose it? There's so many nuances and layers to this, Andy. How do we address it? How do we come together as a community? Because we're certainly stronger when we're together.
Well, I think we have to define disability for ourselves. When I was the president of the American Association of People with Disabilities, again, I was impressed that a bunch of people with physical disabilities hired me to be their president and CEO. And I think it was an intentional decision that they wanted to send a message to the people that have non-visible disabilities that we can be the high profile visible leaders of the disability movement and that our leadership is needed. When I was at AAPD, people ask me all the time, how do you define disability? And I always said, I don't see it as a medical term. I see it as a political, cultural term. So when we, would have a summer internship program, which was my favorite thing that we did, and they're still doing it. It's a great program. We said to the applicants, do you self-identify as a person with a disability? And if they said yes, we did not ask them what their disability was. We didn't ask them for documentation because we didn't want to be another thing that tried to medicalize disability and police the boundaries of what is and is not a legitimate disability. I mean, I think you can police the boundaries if you're like have a cash benefit program and you're trying to figure out who needs cash benefits to be able to survive or support themselves. So that's a different situation. But when you're trying to build an internship that's open to the whole community, I don't see any point in policing the boundaries of what is legitimate. I think disability is an evolving term. I remember, I don't know if you ever met Irv Zola at Brandeis, but Irv was a guy who had polio and kind of was one of the early leaders of the disability studies field in academia. But I heard him speak once and he said, the question is not, do you have a disability, but how many and in what combination?
Oh, and that is so true. Sometimes I feel like people, when I write, think my whole family is broken. And it's like, or do I just have a typical family?
Yeah.
My mom had borderline personality disorder and tried to commit suicide multiple times. She was so sad, and she's passed over now and in a good place, in my opinion. My sister has really struggled with bipolar. So, and I don't think that my family is unique. I think that this is happening.
I mean, as you know, Deborah, when you're open and out with a mental health condition, you are a magnet for other people telling you their dark things that they don't tell other people. And it's sad that they see them as dark things. I mean, because you're right, it's part of humanity. I mean, for me as a young lawyer, kind of coming into this movement in my 20s, the most powerful thing for me was when somebody gave me the language from the ADA that disability is a natural part of the human experience.
Yes.
Having grown up in Los Angeles in the 70s, like the idea that something was natural was really important to me. My family was very anti-science. We were kind of hippie, groovy, natural people.
So, I would love your family.
So I like the idea that my disability was a natural part of being a human, and it should not hold me back in any way from doing what I want to do.
Yeah, and I swear it makes us more creative. And when you look at, and you had mentioned some of this before, but when you look at CEOs and entrepreneurs, most of us have disabilities. Most of us, some of the most influential people in the world, like Sir Richard Branson. He has a disability. His disability almost killed him because he has dyslexia.
Or Ted Turner or Dolly Parton. I mean, there are just so many examples.
Right. They're just all these humans.
Yeah.
And so I think, we're coming up on the ADA 30, and I'll say something that I've had two people recently say to me, do you think we need to redo the Americans with Disability Act? I think we'll just throw it out. We'll start again. And I was like, I don't think we need to be throwing stuff out. I think instead we need to always be evolving. But let me ask you that.
Well, yeah, no, I agree with you that it would be a mistake to kind of start from scratch. I think there are a lot of other countries that are doing that because they don't have kind of an underlying civil rights law for people with disabilities. So they're trying to learn from some of our mistakes, and I think that's healthy. But I think the way kind of rights work is it's an iterative process. And I think when Congress establishes a civil rights law, it's always grounded in the idea of equal protection in the Constitution. So in some ways, the Americans with Disabilities Act is an imperfect statement of Congress's understanding in 1990 and 1989 of what civil rights and equal protection means for people with disabilities. So obviously, 30 years later, our understanding of that has evolved. There's a lot of stuff that we all deal with day to day in 2020 that we didn't deal with in 1990. It's hard to remember back that far, but we didn't have cell phones in 1990. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that we didn't have. So yeah, the ADA doesn't exactly speak to all of the ways that people with disabilities experience exclusion or discrimination or barriers to full participation, but it lays out a great vision. So the vision is the right vision: full participation, economic self-sufficiency, independent living, equality of opportunity. I think as the independent living movement gets more diverse, a lot of people are talking more about interdependency as a good thing. The concept of independent living sometimes is a very kind of white middle class pioneer concept, like I'm going to be on the the frontier supporting myself with my farm or whatever.
Right.
And that is not a model that carries across every culture. And I think the concept of interdependence, again, is a more realistic concept. All of us as human are dependent on other people. As
Yeah.
as the CEO of this large organization that I'm working for now, I'm incredibly needy and incredibly supported. I'm blown away by the number of people who help me do my job.
Yeah, it's incredible. And Sarah, my daughter with Down syndrome, she moved out about 6 months ago into supported independent living. So she lives in an apartment with another young woman that has intellectual disabilities. And then she has a staff that comes in, and helps her with meals and things like that. And she recently has started struggling a little bit, and so the team is coming together. I think, is it independence? It's like you said, it's
And I also
interdependence.
think I don't know if you remember Roland Johnson, who's a
Yeah.
leader in the self-advocacy movement in Philadelphia, but he used to say to self-advocates, "Who's in charge?" And the answer was, "I'm in charge."
That's right. That's right.
I think if everybody sees themselves as being in charge of their own life and then
Yes.
finds the people that can help them do what they want to do, I think that is interdependence, but there's still self-determination at the core of the interdependence.
Right, I agree. I think we have a lot to celebrate with the ADA, and I'm proud as an American that the ADA was, the foundation that helped support the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And so I think we've done a lot in the United States, and I definitely know we have a lot more to do. And that's why I appreciate so much the different organizations that you've supported in your career, because it's really going to take all of us. I remember when I first came into this field from the banking industry, I had people say to me, "Oh yeah, but you're just a parent." Well, because at the time I knew I had these problems, because sometimes depression is a real problem, anxiety for me. It really, really, gets to me sometimes, and a lot of times, and especially when the times are intense like this. It's like everything, gets more intense. But at the same time, I thought, well, I think we need everybody in this movement. Everybody, all allies, whether you think you have no connection at all to the community of people with disabilities, please join us. All allies are welcome. Everyone's welcome.
Well, and I think what you just articulated is a leadership philosophy. And so I've been thinking a lot about what kind of leaders do we need to get our movement to another level? Right now, it feels like we're a fractured movement. I think to some degree, we've always had fractures, but somehow they feel deeper and more painful right now than they have in my career. But the kinds of leaders that I want to cultivate, and we started a leadership academy when I was at AUCD that I'm really proud of, and they do great work at Georgia State University. But I want to cultivate leaders like Justin Dart, who genuinely love the people that they come in contact with. So they lead with love, and they see a role for everyone. And I mean everyone. And sometimes we don't live up to that. That's not easy to live up to, but I think it helps to be clear that that's what we're trying to achieve as a movement.
I agree. And how do we do that? I mean, we do that somewhat already with our work, and certainly we're both very active on social media, and we spend a lot of times, because you're really good about this too, Andy, we really spotlight other people's work. Because it's not just about me. It's look at all the amazing things are happening. Look at the opportunities. Oh, that's not good, and sharing data so that, we can help,
I mean, I think it starts with some clarity on the part of the parts of our movement that are trying to cultivate leaders, some clarity about what are the leadership skills and what are the core values that are particularly important for our movement, right? So the idea of cross-disability solidarity, that doesn't just happen overnight. You know, we have to actually decide it's important, and then we need to cultivate leaders who believe in that and understand to do cross-disability right, you really have to get under the hood with the deaf community and understand why are they reluctant, and how do you kind of meet them where they are. You have to get under the hood with the autism community and other communities that have a wide swath of leaders, some of whom have very significant support needs, and find ways to support them to be, you know, part of the leadership. So I don't think we've spent enough time as a movement really articulating our core values and then trying to hold each other accountable when we're not living up to those core values, because we all have bad days. And again, if you're leading with love, I feel like you can help somebody get better without, you know, attacking them or belittling them.
I agree. I agree. You know, we all want to learn from each other, and you don't need to rip somebody to pieces to learn, because, by the way, I'm not going to learn from you if you attack me. I'm just going to try to get away from you, you know, or maybe I'm going to come back at you and that's just going to make it worse. But tell us more about, because I, by the way, think that's a brilliant idea. Brilliant idea. How do we do that? And how does you being the CEO now of Disability Rights California, which I was thrilled about, because I think I've always thought that was a very, very important organization. So maybe you can also talk about what they're doing, but can they help us as a community with this need for leadership and supporting and really identifying, you know, how do we move this forward and include the rights, everybody?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. So Disability Rights California is one of 57 federally funded protection and advocacy agencies for people with disabilities. So we serve the whole disability community across the lifespan. The funding at the federal level and the federal organization or the national organization that we're a part of is the National Disability Rights Network. And the funding is proportional to the size of your state. So California is the largest state, so we are the largest protection and advocacy agency. Okay. And the woman that I came after, Catherine Blakemore, who had been the executive director here for 26 years, did a great job managing the organization, managing a lot of growth, and adding a bunch of state money to the federal money. So we're actually twice as large as the next largest protection and advocacy agency, which is Disability Rights Texas. And that's because of all the state money that we get. So it's interesting, when they did the search for their new executive director, the kind of description of DRC said we were the largest disability rights organization in the United States. And that's probably true. I can't think of another organization that does pure advocacy that has a $35 million budget, 70 lawyers, 275 staff, 28 offices. But we're very focused on the state of California. So I think one of the interesting questions for me as the new ED is, how much national work will I be able to do, given that there's a lot to do in this state, and how much global work will I be able to do? And I feel like that'll happen. Both of those things will happen over time. But my priority right now is to learn the state. And one of the things that I really want to do as like a big strategic priority is find leaders, diverse leaders all over California, parent leaders, people with disabilities, youth leaders, you know, seniors, elders, but to find leaders all over the state and cultivate them. You know, I one of the people that interviewed me for the job said I was a collector and a connector.
Yes, yes.
And that's exactly what I want to do in California. I want to find people and connect them with each other and build power. I don't feel like we're very powerful as a movement in California. We were kind of one of the birthplaces of the independent living and disability rights movement. But right now we have a governor who I think is a progressive Democrat and is very focused on homelessness. But as far as I can tell, he doesn't have any deep relationships with disabled people in California. So I want to try to change that.
Yeah, and I've seen that. It seems like we've lost some, you know, because it seemed like it was, when I first moved into the movement, it seemed like it was stronger. And we're working right now, you know, and we're doing some stuff in California too. And I love so much about California and what they're doing and the way they think. But does the disability rights organizations that are in all, that you said there were 53, do they ever get together to talk about?
Yeah, so the National Disability Rights Network has an annual conference that brings together the whole network. The next one is going to be in June in Phoenix. It's usually in Baltimore, which makes me happy because that's where I lived for 25 years. But yeah, so, and I had a great talk with the head of Disability Rights Texas. I think there's a long history of us collaborating. There's a lot of issues that are obviously common issues across states. So yes, and it's similar to AUCD. You know, AUCD would bring together all of the University Centers for Excellence. So we have 3 University Centers for Excellence here in California. So I'm really looking forward to collaborating with them. But yes, there is that collaboration. And I think the whole country, you know, it's the disability rights movement in the United States this year is ripe for a conversation about what have we learned in 30 years?
Yes.
Where are we headed as a movement? And to the extent that we have a national election going on, what do we want the candidates to know and understand about our community?
And we'd love to help with that, Andy. I hold my hand up because as I get to be, you know, older, I'm wondering what I could do to add even more impact. You know, how can we help even more? How do we make sure? I talked about this one time on air, but one time on Twitter, there was white privilege was trending. And I thought, oh, okay, are you brave enough to go into that hashtag? But what I did was I did go in there and there was really stupid comments being made, but in some nice comments, but mainly not nice comments. And I said, I'm opening the door wide for everybody else to come in behind me because, you know, I think that's what we do. We lead and we help change the world for everyone.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think you've had more success and more kind of capacity to really build big platforms on social media than anybody else I know in the disability movement. So I think we can all learn from you on how to do that. If we're not leveraging social media, what a missed opportunity.
Right. I agree. And I love that you're pulling the different organizations together that you worked with. You know, AUCD it's an amazing organization with all those universities really trying to make a difference and successfully doing that as well. And I think it's cool that you're bringing all these pieces together because sometimes, Andy, it feels like the disability foundations and organizations, they don't play so nice together. Especially I see it from the global lens, you know, global people are reaching over to the US and saying, you know, how can we help? And it's like, no, we don't need you. We'll come in, we'll tell you what to think.
But I would say, Deborah, that's a sign of weak leadership. So again, I think if we're clear that good leaders collaborate, good leaders lift each other up, good leaders, if they have a problem with somebody, they don't attack them across a public platform. They do it, you know, privately. I mean, I think we can be clear what are the leadership skills that we're trying to cultivate as a movement.
Oh, I so agree. This is one reason why I'm such a fan of yours, you know. So tell us, you know, what you're excited about with your new job. I mean, already you've told us some wonderful ideas. I wanted to be taking notes, but luckily we do a transcription, so I'll get them that way.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm excited about, Deborah, is a whole new group of people. I mean, part of my disability is that I kind of always like to do big, hard, new things. I don't like to just keep doing the same thing. So for me, it's really exciting to be in a much larger organization. I've never managed an organization this big. It's exciting to meet all these great people who work here. I mean, it's 275 staff. I have a lot of people to meet. And I'm the kind of manager that likes to really get to know my staff. I feel like part of your job as a manager, I feel like you're very similar, is you need to find something in every staff person to fall in love with, you know, and really try to lift up the capacity that exists in every person. So I'm excited to just get to know this staff. I've never worked with this many lawyers. It's kind of reminding me, you know, I'm a lawyer, but I've never been like a traditional practicing lawyer. So it's like I'm remembering things from 30 years ago when I was in law school. But it's fun working with a very diverse group of professionals with and without disabilities, who do nothing but advocacy. I mean, that's what's nice. We have a lot of capacity, and all of the capacity is around advocacy, education, you know, doing work in court, but we do a lot of work outside of court. We do reports, we do investigations. Our statutory authority lets us go into places that nobody else can get into. So like we were able to go into detention centers, looking for what was happening for children and adults with disabilities. And the immigration advocacy community didn't have access to the detention centers, but because of our statutory authority, we could get in there. So I think it's a beautiful thing. I have a lot to learn. I'm 1 month into the job, but so far I'm really enjoying it.
Well, and so I know you're new to the job, but I also know what you've done in your past jobs. How do you get corporations more involved? I know you said you're funding state and national, but I know you and I agree when it comes to,
So
must be involved.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we have an interesting opportunity to have relationships with the business community because we can sue them and we can partner with them and we can do both. I'm going to be in San Francisco next week, and I was trying to figure out an agenda. There's so many people I want to connect with, but one of the people we're meeting with is one of the diversity leaders at Airbnb. And, I'm bringing my main, like the head of all my lawyers with me to the meeting because I want him to see how diversity people think about affirmative action and, accessibility and all the issues that would happen in a company like Airbnb, which to me is it's a part of the economy that is trying to figure out how to be accessible. It's in some ways it's more complicated in the sharing economy. So I want him to see how a corporation comes at that. I want him to see that we have allies in corporate settings. And, one of the things I want to talk to her about is, could we come train your staff on ADA or other disability rights laws as the Fair Housing Act, other laws as they apply to your business. And I would do that for free and with the goal of building a relationship. But we have a lot of capacity to do that kind of training all over California.
And I think it's really important. And I know I have multiple clients in California that are located in California, but they're global clients. And they're starting, I've been saying it for a few years, get engaged with the community, but now they're starting to hear it. And they're saying, okay, but how do we really do that, Debra? And I think, you've been talking. So no, but how do you really do it? You do it by collaborating, by partnering, by working with organizations like yours.
Building relationships. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for us over time to do that and still be able to sue people when we need to sue them. I don't think having relationships precludes filing lawsuits when that is the thing that is required.
I agree. And I'm actually, over the years, I've thought so much about litigation, but I'm really glad that we litigate in the United States. I think sometimes we overuse it. Often we overuse it. I think blah, blah, blah. But I'm glad that we actually have the ability to say, well, our law says you are supposed to do this. So I know we have a messy country, but I'm really proud to be an American.
I think one of the nice things about a protection and advocacy organization like Disability Rights California is litigation is one of many tools. It's not our only tool. So there are some legal environments where they exist to litigate. We don't exist to litigate. That's part of what we do, but we also do policy work. We also do education and training. We also do investigations. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do advocacy, and I like it that we have a broad approach to doing the advocacy.
Right, I agree. And I like so much that you're about disability. So you're covering all disabilities. And I think, there's sometimes, I know it's very important to have the different groups, but we need to come together more And I think that's one thing that I've always loved about Disability Rights California. I've always followed their work more than others. You know, you say there's 53, and I think, well, there must be one here in Virginia, and I don't even know who that is. So I'm going to get off and try to figure out who it is, because I should know who they are, but
well,
really the
so
only one I knew about was California.
So part of it is a branding thing. You know, the national organization forever was called the National Association of Protection and Advocacy Systems, or NAPAS.
Oh, wow.
And then they changed their name to the National Disability Rights Network, and they encouraged all of their members over time to change their name. So in Virginia, I think it was called the Virginia Board for Persons with Disabilities.
Okay, I do know about them.
Yeah,
Okay,
it had an
okay.
unusual.
Okay.
Anyway,
that's who they are. Okay, I know them well.
But the good news is that over time, most of the members now are called disability rights, and then the name of their state or territory.
Oh, good. And you know, we are the United States. Our states are very, very, very powerful. And, you know, we're really into states' rights. And so sometimes when I hear people say, oh, do it nationally. Well, absolutely. But we are the United States, and our states really like, you know, doing things their way. And we need to make sure that includes disability rights in the most, you know, robust way that we can make that.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing up the importance of doing work at the state level. That's actually something I'm really looking forward to. You know, sometimes when you're in Washington, you lose sight of what's happening on the ground, you know, and I like it that I now have 28 offices across California that are all seeing real people every day. So we're hearing every day, what are the issues happening on the ground? Like right now, a lot of people are thinking about coronavirus, you know,
right.
Like how do I protect myself? Should I get on an airplane? You know, if my kid or I have a compromised immune system, you know, what are my rights? You know, in terms of, can I just refuse to go to work on the subway because I don't want to risk my life? And you know, so there's just a lot of issues that are just cropping up around coronavirus, and obviously that's not unique to California, but those issues are front and center issues in California and Washington State right now, because that's where a lot of the early cases are.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Andy, I know that I've kept you on longer than I promised, but I want to ask you one more question. And then also I want you to tell the audience, you know, your website and how to get hold of you on social media and stuff. But I think the work you're doing is so important. And so what can we do as a community to support you more and the work that you are doing with disability rights in California? Because I have a feeling, once again, you're going to be very innovative and you're going to change things in a way that's very powerful to our community. What do we do to get behind you and help you?
Well, thank you. I mean, so keep in mind that we're a work in progress, but the simplest and most helpful thing right now is just connect with us on social media. You know, we're on Facebook. Our website is just disabilityrightsca.org. I apologize because that's a very long URL.
Yeah, but it's easy to remember.
Yeah, so we're disabilityrightsca.org. You can easily find us on Facebook, on Twitter. We're disabilityca on Twitter.
Okay, all right, good.
And you know, I'm now Andy DRC. I used to be Andy AAPD, and then I was Andy AUCD. So now I'm Andy DRC on Twitter. And then, you know, I'm Andy Imparato on Facebook. But I think if people connect with Disability Rights California, like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, and then engage with us, my hope is that people will find the stuff that we're doing in California relevant and helpful for what they're doing. And obviously the people who are in California, and I know you have an audience in California, we want to engage with them. We want them to know about what we're doing. We're about to come out with a report related to the use of seclusion and restraint in prisons. And I feel like this is a really important issue. It's playing out around the country and around the world. And I'm hoping this report is a wake-up call for people that there's human rights violations happening in prisons every day.
Yes, I know. It's terrible. I see it all the time. It's really chilling. And anything like that you're doing, Andy, please send it to me so I can help turn up the volume. But I will, in the meantime, go and see if there's something that I can sign up for to get updates.
Yeah, we
which-
do have a newsletter. Yeah, I should have mentioned that.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
you can sign
Good,
up for
good,
that
good.
on our website. And if you have trouble finding anything, you know where to find me, and I'm happy to point you in the right direction.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Andy, and for your years and years of leadership. You have really changed so many people's lives, and I know you have impacted my family very positively with the leadership that you've shown, and I'm very, very grateful to you for that. So thank you for your work, and I can't wait to see what you're going to do with this amazing organization in California.
Well, thank you, Deborah. I feel the same about you and your family. I know you've got your hands full right now, and I appreciate that you are able to still do the leadership work that you're doing and do everything that you need to do for your family. So
Yeah, thank you, Andy.
you're a role model for me as well, and I'm proud of you. And
Thank you.
stay purple.
That's right. Stay purple. That's right.
Your
Thank you so
purple hair
much.
reminds me of the Baltimore Ravens and a lot of the artist Prince. There's a lot of good associations I have with purple.
Yeah, I love the color purple too.
It's also a good bipartisan color. People say that
That's right.
if you want to bring the red states and the blue states together, you got to be purple.
We come purple, and then there's the purple pound. Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much, and thank you to all of the audience for watching. I do check out what Andy's doing, and we'll make sure we provide all the links and stuff for you. But it's he's doing some powerful work, and we need to help him be more successful. So thank you so much to the audience and to you, Andy, for joining us today. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.